All right, welcome to Creative Ops for Nonprofits. This is an abbreviated version of a workshop that I do with organizations that tries to jumpstart creative conversations. And so, I apologize. Let me turn off notifications because that's going to drive me crazy. All these beeps and noises. Okay. Make sure we can see our presentation. Okay, perfect. So, once again, my name is Matt Lean, and this is Creative Ops for Nonprofits. This is an abbreviated presentation pulled from a workshop that I do to kickstart, jumpstart creative operations within an organization. This is both an assessment that I go through. This is kind of a pulling people together to use common language to establish quick start items to get the creative process going so you can have a more efficient, more mature, more creative, more business minded creative generation within your organization. Nonprofits specifically have a unique challenge. And though they have a variety of unique challenges actually. And so I want to try to address some of those. First, let me give you a little bit of background on me. The um, the career that I've had has been kind of this long, winding road. And it started off in customer service, doing a lot of work in the automotive industry, taking complex ideas and trying to break them down for customers. I never sold cars or anything like that, but it was definitely logistics and technical explanations and sales. But the customer service side is really where I thrived and where I enjoyed the process the most. The that I did that for about 10 years and then went back to film school. I say went back to film school. It's always my passion to be a cinematographer. And that career took me through that decision. I'm sorry, to change careers not only took me down a professional winding path, but also a personal one. So the person you meet today has been mentored, coached, invested in, forgiven, challenged, pushed, prodded. The person sitting before you has tried to learn and grow through mistakes and failures. I've had the privilege and the responsibility of being called into leadership in different environments, and so I've got experience with sitting with individuals and helping them unstick themselves from difficult situations. And I've also got the received the joy and privilege of learning from great colleagues in the design field, the copywriting field, creative direction, art direction, business strategy, um, even filmmaking. And so I just, the essence of what I do is really storytelling. Whether you're an executive that's thinking about their brand and trying to position yourself, or you've got this big presentation and you want to make sure it goes well, that it's highly received and that it's engaging or impactful, or you're an individual who's looking at their personal life saying that, things are just, it feels like I'm in mud, like I can't get any traction. And even at work, if you're a business and you're trying to connect more with your customers, what I do is find that authentic good story within you, align people around that story, and set you up for success telling a true beautiful good story about yourself. And so often people will say, well, you gotta think about the audience, focus on the audience. Who's your audience? And I'd say that I'm kind of challenging that. And I'm saying, do you know yourself? Don't worry about knowing the audience. Knowing the audience will get you to chase things. Do you know yourself and do you know who you are? So I do that for organizations and individuals. My name is Matt Lean. It is Matthew with one T because my mom's cool and she thought that would be cool. And so I think it's cool. My last name is less cool. It's like a tax lien or a house lien if you're familiar with those. But my name is Matt Lean. My website is mattlean.com. And you can find me on all the social medias. Well, not all of them, but Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Matt underscore lean is the the handle for all those. So that's how to get a hold of me and a little bit about who I am. So let me jump into what we're doing with creative ops. So very quickly, I mentioned that my career has been um, most recently, I've had face to face experience with a lot of creative teams, and this includes large corporate creative agencies, as well as the small businesses or the small one, two, three-person teams that are trying to make an impact or change the way things are, influence the business in some positive way through their creative talents. And so I can see similarities between all these different things. When it comes specifically to nonprofits, my beautiful bride, who is down in that bottom right hand corner, she has given her career to the nonprofit in a variety of organizations from a marketing standpoint, and we kind of see things from opposite angles. You know, she's more the analytical marketer and strategist, and I'm more of the storytelling, brand essence guy. But there's been, from a creative operations standpoint, there's been these common themes, these common challenges that she's run into that I find at other organizations that made me want to put this together. So all this, the first 6 minutes of this are me just trying to give you background on who I am, why this matters to me, and why I'm trying. That's probably too much information, but I just wanted to let you know I care about what's going on at your place of work and want to help. So let's jump into how I approach when I come in as a consultant, as a creative director, whatever it is. I come into an organization and I start listening right off the bat. The first thing I'm listening for is a good, solid creative foundation. I'm trying to assess a handful of measurements. How does the organization talk about branding and creative? We all do this differently. As individuals, even in the same organization, you'll use the same words in different ways. And so I'm looking for areas where we're speaking consistently. I also am looking for areas where one group is calling it this, another group's calling it that, and how do we bridge that? How do we use the same vocabulary? So that's a quick thing that I look for to let me know how far apart or how close together a team is. That's really the goal there. I also look for how close the creative professionals are to the business. Do the creative professionals understand the strengths and weaknesses of the business from a business perspective, not a storytelling perspective, but what the business is going through and what that business has as far as long-term goals. So with a nonprofit, you're looking at your mission statement and you're saying, how close are we at accomplishing putting ourselves out of business, right? That's kind of a cliche way of saying that. But ideally, you're serving people in some kind of way. You're helping people through something. You're creating more access or more support, or you're being there for people in times of need, whatever the case is. The creative professional should understand what goes well for the organization, what things are lifting that organization towards success, and what some of the things are that might be getting in the way from the organization accomplishing its big goal. And the other thing I'm looking for in this context is, do the creatives um, not only do the creatives see the business, but does the business see creative as a business process? So I'm again, I want to recap three things. I'm looking to see how the organization's talking about creative, what words they're using, and how they're labeling things. I'm looking to see if the creatives understand the business, and I'm looking to see if the business sees creative as a business strategy. My interpretation of whatever that is will give me kind of a game plan on how to handle these next three things. I still handle these three things, but I may spend more time in one area than the other. What are those three things? Well, before I take you into some of the common things I hear, I'm assuming a couple things, and I want to make sure that this is true. And so you're just going to have to gut check yourself here. One is, I'm assuming that that you want to help your organization. It might sound like a silly thing to say, but sometimes we get caught up in a "they don't understand me" kind of conversation, and I want to make sure we squash that right off the bat. Inadvertently, things can become personal, especially through creative, because creative is this artistic, expressive uh, part of the business if not handled correctly. And so I want to make sure that you, as a professional creative or as a marketer or a leader of creatives or somebody that's expecting things out of creative, that we all understand that we're trying to help the organization here. This isn't about those people or the way they do things. Is we're all in the same organization. We need to work together and understand each other better. So my job is to create understanding, and I want to make sure we all agree that this is about helping the organization succeed. This is not about um, pointing fingers. This is about growing in our ability to treat brand as a business asset, um, one that has to be protected. And here's the example I use: just like HR protects people and finance protects money, creative services protects engagement, marketing, communications, and relationship. It is a business function that should be effective, and so there's language around business functions that sometimes we forget to use in the context of a creative services function. So, to my fellow creative, if you're watching this and you're a professional designer, video producer, developer, designer of apps and digital, copywriter, whatever your craft is, photographer, I want you to know that this entire effort is to position you as a contributor to your organization beyond your craft. I want to position you as a strategist, but we've got to make sure you're thinking strategically about the business, not about just creative. So this is going to the whole intent here is to bring people closer together. That's the win by the time I'm done. Is if people from the business and people from the creative side understand each other better, then I've done my job to help. So I listen for things I mentioned, and a couple sentences that catch my attention are I like it. So this is often something that I hear when people are gauging the effectiveness of something that was created. If if you are looking at collateral and deciding whether or not it will move forward or get revised based on whether or not you like it or dislike it, we're not thinking about it from a business perspective. If you're hearing these phrases, I like it or I don't like it, my favorite thing, which is a little rude to be honest with you, but the reason I do is it kind of it cuts through all the emotion very quick and gets to business. No one cares if you like it. We're not asking if you like it. Okay. So if you're on the business side and you're talking to creatives and they're talking about how much they like it, we don't care if you like it. We're talking about whether or not this works. Don't talk to your boss that way and don't be a jerk. I need to be clear about that, but sometimes I'm probably a jerk. But it just cuts through to the point. We're not here to make things we like. This is not an art project. This is not decorating the living room. We're making things that work, that get to the people you're trying to communicate with and does a job. It has to function, just like a contract. So when legal develops a contract, it has to work. It shouldn't be graded off of whether or not the words are big or like how many syllables you got in there. Like no one cares. Is it clear? Does it protect the company? Does it function? And if it does, we don't need to keep reworking this. Every now and then you might have a piece where you're looking at it from a craft perspective, but the day-to-day work needs to be about function. So I want to clarify something here because all my sarcasm might be getting in the way. There's two things that I've learned from hearing this. One is that leaders love making smart business decisions. And I'm going to start heading down this path of what we're really getting at here of how you have business conversations around creative. Leaders love making smart business decisions. The second thing I've learned is that leaders love making decisions. Those are two separate things, even though they sound the same. Okay, so leaders accept when they become a formal leader, when they're in a leadership role, they understand that there is a responsibility to make decisions. And it's something that they train for. They better at it than others. But leaders are preparing for the moment to make a decision because that's ultimately how they support you if you report to them. Is they make decisions. Leaders also, when they make the decision, they want to make a good one. They don't want to make a bunch of bad decisions. They want to make a good decision. And great leaders will make sure that those good decisions are for the betterment of the organization. that they're helping accomplish the mission. So this takes me to how we fix things like I like it. First thing I'm going to start asking about is this checklist. I want to gauge where we're at from the health of our brand. How do we look at our brand? Some of you could be looking at this and going, a brand guide, really? Like that's elementary. But there, I can't tell you how many organizations don't have this as either they don't have it put together or they don't use it. So you can have an awesome brand guide, but if it never comes out and you're not actually making decisions from it, well, then you may as well not have it. So I'm gauging whether or not you're using this thing. And if you don't have one, this is your first quick start. This is what we attack right away. By next Friday, I want you to have a visual identity put together. And I'm going to show you how to do that very quickly. You don't have to do a big research project. You don't have to hire a company. You don't have to, you can have one right away. I'm also looking for messaging. Do you have like your do's and don'ts? What do you say? What do you not say? So we're going to talk about that. And then how are you scoping projects? Are you getting specific about how you scope projects? So these are some things I'm going to walk you through real quick. Let me take you to this. So if you don't have a brand guide, as fast as possible, I said by next Friday, but you do it as fast as possible. Get your logo, get your color palette, and get your font all on the same document. Make a one sheet that has that. And if your organization doesn't have these things decided, then to my fellow creative, I'm suggesting that you make a suggestion. This doesn't have to be correct and it doesn't have to be final. I'm asking you to start it. This will benefit your organization if we start guiding people toward being decisive about how your organization presents itself into the world. It's okay to test and learn. It's okay to revise as you go. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is get to a place where everyone uses the same logo, same colors, same typefaces. Okay. So don't worry about getting it right. Worry about getting it started. Excuse me. The other thing is if you don't have some sense of what you do say and what you don't say, put something together. We're not looking for boilerplates here. You're not putting together scripts. You're not putting together personas and all that kind of stuff. Just from a basic messaging standpoint, do we use bold words? Do we use active words? Do we use humble words? Like just put something together. And here's some words that we absolutely never say. Right? Or maybe you're an organization where hyphenations and things like that are a big deal. Okay, put those in. I worked at a place where coworker could not be hyphenated, and it drove me crazy because it looked on video. I was a motion designer at the time. It looked like cow worker. No matter how you chop this up, it never looked like coworker. But because the AP style guide said so, we did that. Okay, it looks awful and nobody can read it, but we did the right thing, right? That's kind of what this does. Is it draws a line in the sand and says, here's where we're gonna succeed or fail based off of these rules. And so you're not putting the rule book together yet, but you're at least starting the conversation about what are our non-negotiables, what are the things we're gonna do. So just at least start this, get it going if you don't have it. Here's another thing I hear: we're too busy. We don't have enough time. We don't have a big budget. I'm going to tell you that I've heard this at every single organization that I've been a part of. I have yet to see an organization up close that didn't have these complaints. We're talking big, huge organizations and small ones. This is not, this is so emotional. And we've got to put some framework around this because you have the same amount of time everybody has. We've heard this before. It's cliche. How many times have you heard? You have the same amount of time. Oprah, Tyler Perry, Beyonce, Jay-Z. Pick your successful person. You have the same amount of time they have. Yeah, but. That's what I'm trying to challenge right now. We're going to stop saying yeah, but, and we're going to stop making excuses. We're talking about things you can start doing right now to make change. So rather than I'm too busy or I don't have enough time, what I want to walk through is kind of like budgeting time for yourself. So skip the emotional statements. Let's go to, and we're going to stop looking at time and money as roadblocks, but we're going to start looking at them as fact bases. So, okay, I have to get this done for free with no budget. No, okay, that at least gives me a parameter to work within. I have 2 hours a week to work on this. It's going to take me 30 hours to get it done. That means it's going to take me 15 weeks to do it. That's unrealistic probably, but it at least gives you a framework to where it's not that you can't do it, it's not that you don't have enough time, it's whatever. It's just gonna take a long time for that thing, and maybe that's appropriate. But remember, the 2 things that I shared with you is that leaders love making decisions and leaders love making smart decisions. So we've got to equip you to start having conversations that are fact-based, not emotional. I'm busy is not a business statement. I'm busy is not helpful to anyone. I have 85 hours of scheduled project time coming up. That's okay. We can work with that. What are those hours? What are the projects is on? Can I remove some of those? Can I get you some help? Can we, as a leader, I can now step in and be there for you. As a creative, you can now take control of your calendar a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to focus my attention on these and not on these. So let me take you in just a little bit further. If you're not tracking your time today, I want you to start, but don't get all freaked out because some people get overwhelmed by this. Like you're not an attorney, you don't have to start calculating, tracking every 15 minutes that you spend. I don't even want you to start tracking a half hour. And I'm going to tell you, I was the worst at tracking time. I was a hypocrite, actually. I was the leader that was like, you got to track your time, you got to track your time. And then I go to my desk and not track my time. But what did help me was this activity right here. I broke my day up into 4 slots. This is assuming an 8-hour workday, okay? You're not sharing this with anybody. This is for your own knowledge, artist, because what I do know and what most professional creatives know is that the time they think things take is actually inaccurate most of the time. They either exaggerate it one way or another. It's either a 15-minute project that actually takes an hour, or it's a hour and a half long project that they say is going to take a month. But we over exaggerate how long things will take. So I want you to notice the color coding. I'm going to come back to the color coding in a minute, but this gives you a way of breaking down your day. For 2 hours every day, I'm going to work on these things. For 2 hours a day, I'm going to work on these things. For 2 hours a day, I'll work on those things and on those things. And now I can have a fact-based conversation without them, highly detailed mapping of where every minute went. I can at least tell you at the end of the day what the 4 main things I got done were, and I can average that out to 2-hour blocks. And I can come back to my leader and say, hey, listen, for 4 hours today, I was in meetings. It left me 4 hours to get some things done. And here's what I chose. Here's what I worked on. Here's what I believe I was supposed to do. So to have a better idea of how long you're gaining a better idea of how long things take. And you, instead of, I don't have time, you can now say, I'll dedicate X amount of hours the next 5 days on this. Does that work for you? Yes, that works for me, blah, blah, blah. And now you're having a fact-based conversation. I mentioned the color blocking. Trap that color blocking in your mind, okay? Because we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Because one of the other things that I tend to hear is it's important. This is how things get prioritized, right? It's a priority, or so and so asked for it. The CEO, the executive of whatever. It's always somebody important asked for it. It's really important, and it's a priority. All of those mean nothing, especially if you're at an organization where there's one core massive leader. Okay, but I've worked at organizations where there's 20 executives and twice as many directors, and who asked for it was never a way to filter anything. You couldn't make an actual decision because then you're just choosing who you like better, I guess. I don't know, or who would beat who would win in an argument. I don't know, but it's like you're picking people instead of picking what's valuable to the business, which is, maybe you can see where I'm taking you. We want to start making decisions based on what's good to the business. Remember at the beginning, I said our creatives should be close to the business. This is a quick start that'll get people close to the business. So I'm going to show you how to decide things based on the idea that we're trying to serve organizations' goals the best we can, and we're making brand an asset. We're managing our time with facts, not emotion. Because remember, leaders want to make decisions. They want to make good decisions. They love making smart decisions, and great leaders will make decisions that are best for the business. So we want to equip them with the information to do so. So what does that mean? There's these 3 gates of priority that I've figured out, not only for teams that I lead, but also my own personal work. And these color codes represent the most important, second most important, third most important. And I base my efforts off of these three gates. So what are these three gates? First, we have business critical. This is the top priority. And when we think about business critical, especially in a nonprofit world, there's some questions that I'm just going to throw out there as prompts. I don't want you to think that these are the rules. You can come up with your own questions, but they're filters that help us decide or determine what is most important to the business. And when I say critical to the business, I want to make sure we're on the same page. This means that business stops if we don't make this piece. What you're going to find is that nothing you're working on, let me rephrase that. What you're going to find is that very few things that you work on are actually business critical. That's been my experience at every single place I've worked. There's a handful of projects that come across your plate that are truly critical to the business. They exist, but they're not as prominent as you think they are, which makes it easy to prioritize them and put them at the top. It also makes it easy for other things to creep in, and I'm going to talk about how to protect that. So I want you to ask some questions. Here's some questions that I ask. If I'm new to an organization and I don't know all the ins and outs of their business, I'm going to start asking questions like, if we do not make this, can people not perform their job? In other words, do we have to send this through a creative services function and have it made by a creative services professional in order for an employee to effectively do their job? Not we want it to look nice because it's going to see all the employees. That's different. But does this have to be created by creative services in order for the workforce to do their job? Can donors not send their money if we didn't make this? If we didn't make it, would it stop money from coming into the organization or leaving the organization? That's a business critical function. Can volunteers not sign up to help out with things? That is business critical in the nonprofit organization. If we didn't make this, are we violating some contract obligation or a fulfillment of a grant that we have to make sure we come through on? These are business critical to a nonprofit organization, and you're probably thinking of questions that I'm not. You might even be looking at the questions that I'm asking and saying, well, that's not really a thing for us. That's fine. The fact that you're thinking about what business critical is important, but remember, it has to actually stop that function, not it leads people to the function or it helps people with the function or it raises awareness of the function. Those are different. This has to have a direct impact that stops business. Those are the pieces that make it in this. A couple examples of this. Well, I'll give you one. There was a project that I used to do for. I was on a team for a energy company, and every year they would update what was called the accident prevention manual. The accident prevention manual was like a little book that linemen would keep in their pockets, or like folks that worked in the plants and things like that. People with high risk jobs. Okay, their life is on the line in much of their work, and they keep this book that has facts, stats, points of safety, so that they know approaching distance to electrical components, things that can save their lives. Well, I got to tell you, prior to me working through this, well, that project was actually a catalyst to me working through this model. I had been toying around with it, but this project put it front and center for me and locked it in. Each year when they would update it, our job was to go through and kind of do all the indexing. It was hundreds of pages and it was very tedious work. It wasn't like a flashy creative project. It was just something that had to be done. And so it became kind of low priority. We would focus all of our attention on the really flashy ads and the campaigns and just the big things that got a lot of attention. And then there's one day where we received a phone call that a lineman had discovered a typo. And it was approach distance to a switching cabinet, which is high voltage. It can kill you if we get that wrong, and we had it wrong. And I don't remember what the digit was. I want to say there was a 0 missing, like, or maybe there was a 1 missing. Like it said 5 feet and it should have been 15 feet, or it was something along those lines. But But what was explained to me is our mistake could have killed somebody. And I used to actually say before that, that creative work, we're not dealing with life or death. We're not dealing with things that actually stop the business. So we need to just relax and keep composure. After that day, my entire mind shifted. And anything that had that level of impact would go to the top. It would get our best attention. We would clear all the other projects to make sure that that was done perfectly. We could not make a mistake on things like that. That became business critical. And I could sit there in front of an executive and have a conversation about why that went to the top, why we're not touching anything else until that's done, and why that had to be perfect. And an executive, they're not going to argue with that. They're going to support it, which leads me to what comes next. The second gate is the second most important thing. It's really about developing the business's storytelling and creative. There's a saying in racing and in car racing that you have to slow down to go fast. And what they're saying is if you had the pedal down all the way and you're going into a turn at full speed, you're you're not going to be able to finish the race. So you have to let off the gas and actually at a lot of racetracks you have to hit the brakes. It's kind of counterintuitive to racing, but it's such an important part of being fast. I consider this the moment that we hit the brakes. It's the moment that we slow down and we work on the brand. We work on the big storytelling pieces. So in my experience, this is where we've done the brand guide work. Okay. So if we don't make this, we lose consistency within our brand. We lose the essence of who we are from a visual identity standpoint, from a messaging standpoint. So we want to be working on that consistently. The brand guidance, the governance, the education and awareness around who we are as a brand, that's critical to the business. It's not urgent, so it doesn't need to go first, but it is something we need to kind of always be managing. We need to dedicate some time to it. If we don't make this, then we lose efficiency. This is where templates are made. Okay, so these are where you can make one thing and 10 other people can make 10 other things. So we're trying to set up the organization to scale creative work. They're not there to make wonderful pieces of art. They're there to get things done without creative services involved. So we're working on templates, we're working on brand guidance, we're working on governance. We're also we're also working on those signature projects. Like a brand essence video is something that I've always bucketed in here. It's like that video can not only go on the website, but it goes to events with our executives. It goes to calls for funding. It's the who we are. It's the call to action for the organization. It's that one video that just gets played everywhere. So that's a good example of what happens in brand management and development. So you've got these two things: is business critical work. You're managing a brand, and you're making sure that people can take and make things. So then there's all the rest of the stuff. And I joke around sometimes like this is the crap we get into, right? Yeah, like a porta potty joke. It's not really crap. It's it really isn't. It's important work, but this is the stuff that gets in the way. This is the stuff that confuses us. These are the projects that cause us to think we're inundated with an inability to prioritize. These are the promotions, the invites, the posters, the ads, the newsletters, the social media posts. This is all these things that we think have to be special creative moments, when in actuality, this is the bucket that should be most efficient. This should be the bucket where we're just off of things we've already made and modifying. This is not where your heavy creative goes. Your heavy creative should be focused on gate number 2 or gate number 1 if the project calls for it. But this stuff should be like production items. This should be like things where you're taking an old project and modifying it. Or if you're taking a new one, you've got room and resources to do that. So we've got these 3 buckets of work, and now how do you use this information to manage your day? Well, remember that slide I showed you with the 2 hours, the 2 hours, the 2 hours, the 2 hours. You can look at a week-long view even and work with your leader on that, but say, I'm going to take 2 2-hour blocks. I'm going to take 1 2-hour block, I'm sorry, each morning and leave it reserved for gate 1. It'll be the first thing I work on in the morning. It'll be the most important thing I work on. I'm going to make sure those critical items are done, and I always have 2 hours a day dedicated to that. Now, if I don't have any of that work, I'll move into the priority two, the gate two. But as part this gate one needs to have we need to protect time around it. The second gate, we protect time around it. So we block out 2 hours a day for that. So you've protected 4 hours a day to this type of work. The other two blocks are for these projects. The reality of our work is that we're loaded with these projects. So what if two of your four blocks are dedicated to this work? Well, that's 50% of your time is dedicated to this work. Now, I haven't mentioned meetings and some of the other things that get in the way of your schedule, but now you can start to have an effective conversation with your leader, with your colleagues, with your teammates, whatever it is, about where you're spending your time. You're turning in one of these tokens every time you want to spend some time, and you got to think about it that way. This is where the whole idea of saying no comes in or leaves, whichever one it is. But what we're going to do now is I hear people say we don't say no, we can't say no, we never say no. Some of this is kind of jokingly attributed to nonprofits being primarily people pleasers. And I've found that to be somewhat accurate, not 100%. But what I want to do is equip you with, again, getting out of the emotional responses. Instead of I can't do it, instead of any type of, an emotional explanation as to why you can't do something, now you can start to articulate what you are working and what some options are. So somebody comes to you with a request, it's not, oh, I'm busy, I don't know when I'm going to get it done. They never listen, but whatever. Now it's based on my current workload, I've got these priority projects and it's got me booked for the next 14 days. I'm making up a time period. I'm booked for the next 14 days, and based on that schedule, the return on this request would be, I don't know, 20 to 30 business days, because I won't be able to even start on this request until after I'm done with those things. Well, okay. That if I'm looking at that right, it means that your project's going to be done probably around this date, which, is you're going to get an answer of like, what? That's way too long. This is important. So and so asked for it. This is where you can meet them with facts and give them options. Okay, this is the most beautiful part of this whole thing is now you have a structure for saying no without saying no. I have a few ideas of how you can get this done because I can tell I'm hearing that timing is the most important thing to you. I'm hearing that that is the most important thing. That it can actually sacrifice maybe the way it looks a little bit. We can find an easier way to do this. So I have a few ideas. One is you could always wait. I get that timing isn't going to work, but I'm happy to work on it. I just won't be, that's one option. Option number two is if you're okay with doing a little with helping, I can give you a template and you can go make it and I can take a look at it and give you feedback. But if you want to play designer, you can use my template and you can execute it. Or if that doesn't work, no, that you don't have time for that. Okay. Well, here's another option. We can actually hire a contractor. Well, we don't have budget for that. Oh, okay. I'm just throwing out ideas here because if it's truly critical, either my boss is going to come and start to have a business conversation with me about what gets moved, or there's actually budget and you can hire somebody to come in, or they'll tell that person, hey, just use a template and get it done because it doesn't need to be the most beautiful thing in the world. But remember, your leader loves to make decisions, wants to make decisions, wants to make smart decisions, and wants to make smart decisions that make the business better. So that's what all this is driving to. Now you have a structured, fact-based way of managing the conversation. And it will mean that at times your workload shifts. That's fine. That's what a leader does. Like, okay, now it's shifting, but not for no reason. Now your leader is making decisions. You know what? That really important business critical thing that we decided could not wait, we can wait. We'll move it. But that's what their job is. They'll make that decision. At least you're going into it with facts, and now you can start to talk about it with capacity for what you can actually get done. There is one more gate that wasn't up here. I keep it in my back pocket, but it is a critical gate. It's gate number 4. And gate number 4 is a hard no. That probably sounds counterintuitive to everything I just told you. But this is really important to me, and I'm asking you to hear me out for a minute. I don't mean to change the tone of the whole thing, but so often creative teams end up in these situations where they're almost exploited because their craft isn't close enough to the business. It's not protected as a business asset. And by having a hard no on certain things, you start to make very clear that what you do is about the business. A couple examples. These are from real life experience. These are real requests that I've had as either a creative or a creative leader. Too many times people will come up to graphic designers or video producers and ask them to help with a prank or a joke, photoshopping someone's face on a thing or creating this funny video about something. And I have a hard no on that, for a couple reasons. One is we don't make fun of people, we don't prank people. That's what children do. It is disgusting and stupid. It's not for the workplace. Do you hear the tone changing? But I want you to reverse this. I want you to imagine yourself asking one of the organization's lawyers to help you with your marriage or your divorce or your car accident that you got into. They would scoff at that. I want you to imagine someone in accounting being asked to help with a home budget or with taxes. What? We're not going to use company resources to help you with your taxes? It's an absurd request to go to these departments within an organization and ask them to support you in making fun of somebody or filming a wedding or preparing for a retirement or celebrating a birthday. Like that's not what a creative services function is here for. Creatives are not here for your art projects. Creatives are here to make the business better. So it assumes that creatives are moving toward the business, that the business is moving toward the creatives as a business asset, and that we're all working on making the brand better. So again, sorry for the weird tone there, but integrity matters to me. And I believe these things affect how we perceive the profession. And so I have a strong hard no on any team that I work on. We don't do those things. We just don't do those things. It's a hard no. It's non-negotiable. It's not a thing. I can refer you to some people who don't work here and you can call them, um, but our team isn't going to do those things for you. I don't care who you are, CEO or not. The answer is no. We will not do that. Now, as a leader, that's my boundary. That's my boundary, and I've yet to have an executive or a leader frown on that. What I hope you've heard through this whole thing is that when we look at an organization that's looking at their creative work or looking at their brand and saying something's not firing here. How do we get this going? I'm going to come in and I'm going to establish some consistency. We're going to start working off of facts and we're going to make the business our focus as quickly as possible. These are all things you can start today. You don't have to get it right today, but you can start the behaviors today. If there's things that you feel are getting in your way here, or if I can help in other ways, please reach out to me. Um, as I mentioned before, I do this for organizations. I do this for individuals. I help put parameters in life with organizations, with business leaders. This is what I'm passionate about, is helping you find those values that are authentic to you, so that when you do meet your audience, they know who you are for real. And you're not chasing trends and trying to be all things to all people. You can earn business because of who you are, not earn business by being who they want you to be. If I do that for you, then I've done my job. Please visit my website, mattlean.com, Matlien. And like I said, come connect with me on social media. And if you have any questions about this, shoot me a comment or an email. I'll be happy to help. And thank you for taking 3/4 of an hour out of your day to learn a little bit from my perspective. I hope you have a wonderful day and that all your creative becomes better.